Hello traders, welcome to another weekly forex market outlook. Today we are going to look at dollar index and some other major pairs including gold. On our screen here is DXY, and if you start from the weekly time frame here, you see that DXY on the weekly time frame finally has pulled back into our demand zone that we've been looking at for a while now. So having traded into this demand zone, you can see price push back to the upside. And right now, all you would do is to drop down to the daily time frame to see if we will have zones to take a trade from. Now, in the daily time frame, if you all can remember, I pointed out in our last episode that this demand zone is where I'll be waiting for market to trade into before we take a long, of which right now you can see after market into this demand zone pushing back up again. And right now in the week ahead, on Monday, as price open, now we're waiting to see if there will be a fractal shift in market structure here. Then I will short. Okay, but to short, I'm not going to take aggressive entry from here. I'll wait for confirmation before I take the entry. If this zone should fail, then I'll be waiting to see if price will push into this supply zone up here. As price push into that supply zone up there, then I can comfortably short from there. Okay, right here I'm waiting for confirmation here, then I will short. But if this zone should fail, then I will take my short from this particular supply zone here. If you look at this supply zone very well, you can see it's still very much fresh. Okay, it's not yet mitigated, so take from that zone and begin to drop down. Okay, if you look at the chart very well, you see liquidity line above here, which is also capable of drawing price to the upside. Okay, that is a buy side liquidity. So with this liquidity here, and you see this imbalance here, and our supply zone here, makes that zone a very nice zone to short from. Okay, now let's check 4 hours time frame and see what we have there. On the 4 hours here, you can see we have this supply zone here that is also fresh. So on 4 hours time frame, as price open in the coming week, I can comfortably short from this zone on the 4 hours time frame. Okay, because as price open in the coming week, you might see a push to the upside and then a drop. This is what is likely to happen as price open next week. You can see a push to that zone, then you see a drop down. So that's what I'm looking at for on the 4 hours time frame. If here should fail, then I will wait for price to trade into this supply zone up here. You can see this fresh supply zone here. So that's what I'll be targeting as price as we move into the next week. All right. If you look at here, we see all this liquidity line above here, and then we have that supply zone up there. So if this one should fail, then that is the only supply zone I think is okay to short from, because no other zone here. This particular zone has been tested before. Take this out. It's already been tested. So right now, that is the only viable supply zone we have, and then this one. All right. Okay. The next pair on our screen here is Euro USD. Euro USD. If you look at the weekly time frame, you all know that Euro USD is always the opposite of dollar index. And as you can see on the weekly time frame, market still pushing up, and then we had this rejection on the weekly time frame. You can see the rejection here within this supply zone. So in the coming week, what I look forward to do is to go down to daily to see if they will have more zones to can take immediate trade. Right here on the daily time frame, you can see the price having pushed into this supply zone, which we have been pointing out for a while. Okay, we highlighted this liquidity here, and then we said we're waiting for price to trade into the supply zone before we short. Okay, now after price trade into that supply, you can see a drop down. Now I have this demand zone here. Within this demand zone, I want to see a fractal shift in market structure here. Then I'll look for long. Okay, no confirmation here, no trade. Okay, so if this zone should fail, we'll have this liquidity down here. I'll be waiting for price to drop down to this fresh demand zone here. We will then look for what? Long. So that's what we're looking for in the daily time frame on the Euro USD. Okay, a long from here. I prefer this zone to this zone. All right, now let's go down to the 4 hours time frame. On the 4 hours, we have this demand zone here, very fresh. You can see it here, not yet mitigated. This is a fresh 4 hours demand zone. Okay, so what are we waiting to see is by next week a price should drop down to this zone. I will look for longs. Okay, I will look for long as price trading to this demand zone. This is my entry there, stop loss below, and then begin to target at least 1 to 2. Okay, so that's what I'm looking out for on the 4 hours time frame on Euro USD. Meanwhile, if this zone should fail, then we'll have this fresh demand zone also down here. You have this liquidity here, have this demand zone here, where I can also look for trade. If this one should fail as well, also have another demand zone here all the way down to this extreme zone. So the most important thing is to always follow your trading plan. Okay, make sure you mark your zone ahead. Once price trade into your zone, then you enter your trade without any hesitation. You don't know the particular zone that will work, you don't know the one that will not work. Most important thing is to follow your trading plan. All right, now let's look at the next pair. Okay, the next pair on our screen here is GBPUSD. GBPUSD on the weekly time frame. You can also see this rejection here on this weekly supply zone once again. Market rejected from that zone and now it's dropping downward again. So right now, go down to the daily and the 4 hours to see what to have there. On the daily time frame here, you can see we pointed out this supply zone in our last episode. If you can go back and watch that video, you see when we pointed out the supply zone, highlighted this liquidity here. We have pointed out that we'll be waiting for price to trade into this supply zone before we short or fish already. We are on the trade and we're hoping as price open next week, rally into our take profits. Okay, in the coming week, as you can see, market is already heading close to this demand zone. So as price open next week, I will look forward to long from this demand zone. Okay, I look forward to long from this demand zone. But if you are not comfortable to long from here, you can go down to lower time frame like 4 hours time frame. Wait for confirmation before you long. Where I would also like to long from here, you can see we have this liquidity here. Okay, and then you have this demand zone. All right. So if this zone should fail, we also have this demand zone here. Okay, you have this demand zone you can also long from. So let's check 4 hours and see what to have on the 4 hours time frame. On the 4 hours, what I'm waiting to see is we have this demand zone here, we have this liquidity, and price now is dropping down. So by next week, I want to see price push down to this demand zone where we then look for longs. Okay, that's what we'll do. Price trading to that place and it should hold. First TP, 1 to 3 risk to reward ratio. Second TP around here, 1 to 5. Okay, and along the way we can also hold because we have this fresh supply zone up here that is not yet mitigated. So it's possible that market can still get to that zone. Meanwhile, if this zone should fail, this particular zone should fail, we'll have this fresh demand zone as well you can trade from, and also have this zone here and this extreme zone also. So whichever one that price push into, they are all good demand zones to take your trade. All right, the next one on our screen here is USD JPY. USD JPY on the weekly time frame, just like dollar index, you can see. I was hoping if it will push down to this demand zone, but unfortunately, you can see it's rejected after taking out all this liquidity below here. Market took out those liquidity without mitigating this demand zone, then pushing back to the upside. Okay, so let's see go down and see on the daily and 4 hours what to have. Here on the daily time frame, you can see market within this supply zone, which was already mitigated before. See, market mitigated this supply zone, push back down. Now returning back to that same zone again. So right now, we'll be comfortable just take a trade from this zone because the zone has already been mitigated before. Rather, what I will do is to wait for confirmation on the lower time frame. Okay, I want to see if there will be a rejection, then I will short. Now, if that zone should fail, then we'll have this supply up here where we can comfortably short from. Okay, and also have this demand zone down here. Yeah, if you should take that trade, they can begin to target this demand zone. All right. Okay, right here on 4 hours time frame, if you look at the chart very well, you can see price already within this supply zone. It's already been mitigated before. The first time, the second time, now the third time again. So as it stands now, this supply zone is not really that valid to trade again. But meanwhile, if price should reject from that place, maybe I see a push to the upside, then rejection, giving me a factor shift in market structure, then I can as well short from that zone. But I'm not going to take a aggressive entry from that zone. Okay. And if the zone should fail, we'll have the supply zone up here. Okay. That is still very much fresh. Then you can wait for trade opportunity. All right. Also down here, we'll have this demand zone that is still very much valid. Okay. So as market open up in the coming week, you can look at these zones for opportunity to trade. If you don't want to take aggressive entry at any zone, use confirmation method. All right. Wait for price to enter your zone, drop down to lower time frame, wait for fractal shift in market structure, then you short or you long. Okay. All right. Right on our screen is good. And good on the weekly time frame, you can see is still rallying very strong to the upside. Okay. It's rallying very strong to the upside. So right now, if you check the weekly here, you can see a new weekly demand zone created here. Okay, which I don't think market will just pull down to this zone that soon. Okay, so what we do now, drop down to daily and 4 hours to look for trade opportunities. On the daily time frame, if you can see, this has been the trade. This trade we have been holding trade for a while now. Okay, we've been holding this trade since last month. We are still holding this trade because one thing about gold, if you're able to get an entry like this, try as much as possible to hold your position. Okay, so right now in the coming week, what I'm looking forward to see is if price can push back down to this demand zone on daily time frame, then it will give us a very nice entry. Okay, as longing from here might not really be that okay, because market as you can see is now within premium pricing. So I would like to see a pullback to this zone to give us an entry. You know, whenever gold is trending, sometimes though it doesn't always pull back that deep. So you can also see a kind of consolidation here as market opens next week, and then you see another rally to the upside. It's possible. So in any case, keep your eye on this demand zone. We also have another one down here. Another thing is, if by next week price opens, market opens, push up, creating a new demand zone here, then in that case, I will look forward to long from here. If price opens there, create a new demand zone here, then that becomes opportunity to long if price should pull back to that zone. Okay, because that will now give us a kind of break of structure here, and then that will be the pullback. Then I will take a long from this from the newly demand zone created. If I don't see that, then I'll patiently wait for a pullback to this demand zone here on the daily time frame. Here on the 4 hours time frame, as you can see on the screen, okay, these were the 4 hours demand zone last time we called in our group. All right, so next week, what I want to see is if markets by next week opens, I want to see a move to the upside, then a drop down, that will give me a long position. Okay, that will give me a long opportunity along this newly created zone. Can I get rid of this? On the 4 hours time frame, I want to see this next week, possibly. Okay. Meanwhile, if that doesn't happen, mind you, have this liquidity line below here. Okay. We have this sell side liquidity here. So, so I will then patiently wait to see price will pull back to this zone. Then I can look for longs. If this one should fail, you have another zone here. Okay. So you watch out for these zones. All right. So that's how we're looking out for in the coming week on gold. If you are more of a day trader, what you do as price trading to this zone, drop down to 1 hour 15 minutes, and then look for fractal shift in market structure and long if you don't want to take aggressive entry. Okay. Meanwhile, if price will drop deeper to this zone, this one is more okay to take aggressive entry. All right. So that is all for today, guys. Thank you for joining us once again. Subscribe if you've not done so. Comment if you have any suggestion. Okay.